Hi everyone and welcome to variation 30. This variation is about flying staccato again, and it's very similar to variation 28, except here we have 6 flying staccato notes. That's one note more. Now, as always with passive and semi-passive bowings, flying staccato is a semi-passive bowing, and it's a rather passive semi-passive bowing. It's very important to secure the left hand because the left hand has to follow the bow. The bow indicates when the notes get played, so basically the bow is leading. Now, the first thing you should do is to practice the left hand, because it's not that easy in this variation. It's a little bit of an uncomfortable key with a couple of uncomfortable shifts in it, and practice it slurred 3. The point of this is, first of all, to get it to sound with an easy bowing. If you go it's comparatively easy to get it to sound. And not only get it to sound, but already when you're slurring 3, think of the bow leading, the bow indicating when the fingers have to move. That's a very helpful way of practicing it, and while you're at it, secure the string crossings as double stops, because that will secure your hand position and your intonation. Give yourself the time to practice it that way. The next step is to practice it slurring 6. That's where you are already practicing the bow division as well. Okay, one thing just as a reminder, that's bar 13, 14. You're in half position, and in bar 14 you're in first position again. Between half position and first position is a shift. One often forgets that. That's this bit. So remember that you actually have to shift back into first position. The other thing is I have a fingering suggestion that's in bar 2 and in the parallel bits. I play the C sharp in first position with second finger simply because it sounds nicer. This is rare that the fingering which sounds nicer is also the easier fingering. But basically that's just a suggestion on my part. Now for the bow, the first thing I would suggest is to practice on one note. Start at the tip, travel to the middle, and then lift the bow and add 5 more notes staying in one place. Basically that's the technique of variation 15, where you're staying in one place. But in this case, make sure you land softly. To land softly, what you don't want is, that's what you don't want. To make it land softly, it helps to tilt the bow a little bit towards the fingerboard. That reduces the tension of the hairs and you get a more soft landing. Otherwise, remember, it's a circular motion from your right hand and fingers do it. That's a preparation for flying staccato. The next step, also on one note, is again to travel to the middle, lift the bow, add 5 more notes, but this time travel to the frog while you play them. Again, make sure you have a very soft landing. Like I said, it helps to tilt the bow towards the fingerboard a little bit. And don't lift the bow too high. If you lift it too high, it gets more difficult to bring it back down softly. That's not possible then. So only lift it a little bit. Think of it more as one bow stroke that you're doing, and it just goes up and down a little bit. Think of it more as small waves and not so much as lifting it high. And then you can bring that into tempo. Now, first step, when you bring right and left hand together and practice the variation, is to do the staccato on the string at first. That gives you a bit more time. You are bringing the coordination right hand and left hand together, and you are already practicing the bow division. Close to what you have to do, you're just not lifting the bow, and it's very helpful to do that, and very important in the even numbered bars, bar 2, bar 4, bar 6, bar 8, don't lift the bow in the rest. If you go keep the bow on the string. Also here, it's very important because if you lift the bow up here, if you lift it, you have to bring it back down again. It's very difficult bringing the bow down at the tip without it bouncing. So keep the bow on the string at the tip after the down bow before you start the up bow again. Now, when you're doing this on the string, not lifting the bow, you can also bring it into tempo a little bit. Because that will help you a lot and you get used to the bow division and you're bringing left and right hand together. Now, I have 2 more practicing methods for you. And I have to say, those 2 practicing methods I did nearly every time I practiced this variation. And it was very funny because whenever I didn't do those practicing methods, because I didn't have time or didn't feel like it or was generally lazy, the variation didn't work out. So for me, they were absolutely necessary. So I'll share them with you. The first one is to practice the variation, lifting the bow, do it slightly under tempo at first, but stay in one place, basically like I showed you in the preparation exercises. The point of this is that by staying in one place and not allowing your bow to travel, you are exercising the control which you use for flying staccato. I'll go into this a little bit. Flying staccato is a semi-passive bowing, which means the bow does most of it, but we give impulses on each note. If we give impulses, we actually play each note, very small impulses. By staying in one place, we are exaggerating the impulse. It's the same movement, it's just a little bit more of the movement. And I think that's why I found it so helpful to practice this variation that way, because I was practicing the impulse that I have to give for flying staccato. So That was one of the practicing methods which helped me a lot. Next practicing method is exaggerated practicing. Exaggerated practicing has the huge advantage that you're making what you're supposed to do more difficult for yourself, so that what you're supposed to do in the end becomes easy. I like exaggerated practicing a lot. What you do is you double the staccato notes. By doubling the staccato notes, you're making it twice as difficult as for yourself. And if you can do that, then playing what's written is a lot easier. Basically, all of a sudden you have lots of space and it seems a lot easier. Also very important in this variation, of course, is the bow division. The bow division is not complicated here because you're doing everything with the whole bow. So you have... So it's not complicated, but important for the up bow with the staccato is to make sure that you know exactly when you start lifting the bow. Because if you use too much bow before, you have no space down here. If you lift the bow too early, if you use too little bow for the slur, then you have to lift the bow in the upper half and you don't have control. That also doesn't work. So about the middle is about right for me, but make sure that you experiment with that so that you know what happens if you use too much bow or too little bow for the slur. That way you get to you get to know your bow and you get to know bow technique, and then decide exactly where you want to lift it. It's also important to do the whole thing at an even speed. You have a slur and then you have the staccato, but that the whole thing becomes one movement for the arm. So those are the things which help me with this variation. I hope you have a good time with this variation. Any questions, let me know in the comments, and yeah, enjoy practicing it.